Welcome to this session. And what I'm going to share is something that I've been doing all my life on my career is don't sell, I tell a story. As a, I started my career as a brand storyteller, as I would call myself. Um, so I've, as you were told 30 plus years in marketing, and I have worked across organizations, startup, agency. So I have seen all sides, including causes. So a lot of cause marketing also is something which I have done. Marketing and digital strategy is something. Digital strategy is something which I picked up at my startup in the digital payment space, which I did about 4 years back, where I was trying to reach out to small merchants across the country in India to get them to start using digital stores platform. So I was heavily into digital strategy, trying to work on that. And from that time onwards, I've been fascinated and been working heavily on the digital strategy with a lot of clients. So I'm also co-founder, as I said, I was a co-founder of a payment startup, founded the Coattails. It's a boutique agency. I'm also founder of Heroes of India, which I just founded about 2 months back. It's an interesting project which is around storytelling and storytelling for good is what this project is about. So let me start with this first thing that I want to share with you is this visual. This is a real visual. Some years back, as a part of the foundation head, the Mastec Foundation, which I was a co-founder in the company Mastec, I had to travel to a place called Melghat in India. And I was visiting a doctor, Dr. Ashish Satav, who is working in one of the poorest areas of the country, working with tribals where there were malnutrition deaths happening. And this is a story of sacrifice. It's a story of somebody who gave up his comforts to go into this very rural area and to serve the poorest of poor people. So I wanted to visit him to see his work, to see what he's doing, and to make a short film out of his work. So that's why I, along with the crew, went on to this location. We traveled in train the whole night, and in the morning, I landed at the place and we started walking. We took a vehicle to come to this location in Melghat. It's a very beautiful location. It's in a tribal location, very green. And I was traveling to this place and I came to this spot, this exact spot which you see in this picture I clicked from my mobile phone. It was raining, it was monsoon times. So first I could see the road. I was on the other side, I saw this road. And within no time, this road disappeared. This is what exactly was happening. Within no time, it was a river which is flowing with a complete fury, and we just couldn't think of getting on the other side. So we waited for some time, but things got even worse. So we were told to try to come to this place from different locations. So I kept on trying for the full day. We tried 5 or 6 different locations to get into this place, Melghat, where Dr. Ashish Satav is serving these people. He runs a small hospital out there for these tribal, people. And I was trying to get in. I just couldn't get in. The full day I kept on trying. And finally in the night we had to give up and we traveled back to Mumbai. So I just couldn't go on the other side. When I saw this, on the way when I was traveling back, I felt, that I need to support Dr. Ashish Satav. And I need to, see if I can get him an ambulance. And I spoke to him and asked Dr. Ashish, how would it be if I had to, work out an ambulance for your work that you're doing in this very difficult terrain? In monsoons, people just can't even get inside and you can't get out on that place. So he said that would really help us. It will help us to take our work into the interiors. And we will be able to do a lot more if we have the support of an ambulance. I went back to Mastec. I shared this story with the employees. And I said, can we raise, what we needed was about 8.5 lakh rupees. I said, can we together jointly raise 8.5 lakh rupees for Dr. Ashish Satav? And within 3 days, we had raised the funds And you can see that this was the ambulance, and it was there within about 10 days. The ambulance was there at Mailghat. So what I'm trying to tell you from this very simple story is I took a story and I told people. I didn't go and sell, just support Dr. Ashish Satav. I took this story of me in this floods, exactly what I shared with you, the difficult conditions, the difficult terrain, and that I tried the whole day, and I couldn't go to the place, and the difficult conditions in which Dr. Ashish Satav is working. I told this story to the employees, and within 3 days, as I said, 500 plus employees of the company had raised these funds for this ambulance, and within 10 days, this ambulance was there at Mailghat and it was available too. So this is a clear example of the power of story to get people to move. I could have presented data, but data was not what touched people. It was the story, my real example of what story is and the power of story to actually help an organization. So here it is very clearly an example that I could get people to act and to do something with it. I'm sure some of you must have heard about this story. This is a story of a beggar. A beggar who was on a street, a blind beggar who was on the street, and he had a signboard next to him which said, "I am blind, please help me." And this message was there next to him, and there was a donation, small can that he had in front of him, and there were many people who were walking past, but they were walking past, nothing was happening. And in such a time, there was this one lady who came, who was from the advertising field or communication field, like me. And she saw this message and she saw this blind man. She said, "Okay, let me do something." She took that board, turned it around, and wrote a very different message. And she put that board out there. She just put it back out there. This person heard the feet of that lady and he saw that something has happened. And that lady walked away to tell this person, to this blind beggar, that I will be here back in the evening. And he did not know what has happened to the board, what she has done. But he was surprised. Suddenly, a lot of people were stopping and the money was just being put in the box and the money was overflowing. In the evening, the lady, when she was turning back home, she walked on the same street, walked next to him, and he was surprised. He asked, "So what did you do? What did you do? What did you write on that board?" And that got so many people to start giving, the donations and start giving me money. The can started ringing. "What did you do? What was that great thing?" And she said, "I just wrote on that particular board, 'It's a beautiful day and I can't see it.' It's a beautiful day and I can't see it." And she just put it out there. Just that one small message change, and I just wanted to reflect what happened. Just reflect on the thing. He had put down, his message that he had put down was, "I'm blind and please help me." And here it was completely a different message, and it's saying, "It's a beautiful day and I can't see it." And this changed the entire thing for this person who was standing there. So what was happening? Just reflect on it. What was actually going on? What did this story do? This changed something. And in the two stories that I've told you, there was some change that you would find by the power of the story. The story actually pulls the observer into the story, into my story. So I have got a story, I pull you into my story. And this is most powerful from communication perspective, attention. I need to get your attention. And I need to pull you into as an observer to come into my story. I then hook you into my story with emotion. So whether it was Dr. Ashish Satav or what you saw out here in this particular message that was changed, it was simply hooking the person with an emotion. It's now your story. The way the person has been pulled into the story now becomes your story. You are relating with it because you relate with the person who is there in that story. And it gets you to move, it gets you to take action, to do something. An ambulance can be raised in 3 days. A can of, what you have put for donations can start ringing, business can start happening. And I have been doing this for the last 30 plus years. This is what I do for a living. Attention, emotion, relatability, action. Within 30 seconds, within 10 seconds, within 20 seconds of a commercial. This is what we do in marketing. This is what we're constantly doing out here. We are storytellers. So I think that everyone is a storyteller. Though I say from marketing I'm a storyteller, I strongly believe that we are all telling stories. We are all storytellers. From morning we start telling stories. We have stories about ourselves. We have stories about other people. We have stories about situations around us. We have stories about the politics that we look at. We have stories about everything that is going on. We all carry stories. We are all storytellers. How do we use stories? How do we look at stories is what we need to really start reflecting on. And the key thing that you will find in all these stories, what the two stories where you found the change happen and action happen, was it is not about me. It is not about me. Nobody is interested in your story. It is about you. It is about the observer. It is about pulling the observer, creating that emotional connect. And this is something that I find that in marketing, this is what actually happens is we forget this very basic. Organizations start thinking that branding is about them. It's never about the organization. It's not about me. It's not about me. It is about you, the client, Mr. Client. You are the person who is the hero of the story. I am not the hero of the story. I am not the story. The story is about you. And this is the big shift in thinking that I think as marketing hat when we wear, we actually, the best marketeers can stand on a corner and observe. They can observe and observe people. They can observe behaviors. They can sense behaviors. And then they're able to, come up with certain things. So we say business, right? Business. We are all about business and we are all making proposals for business. When we say, and we are in business, you say it's got B2B or B2C. We give it different names. We call it something, and finally, if you look at it actually, and we make it so impersonal that, we start thinking that B2B means it's quite impersonal. It's something which I'm doing and I have to give a lot of data and a lot of information and a lot of stuff out there. But what we forget is finally it's all about ideas. Everybody is selling an idea finally. I think we have to just shift back and see there's a person on the other side. And let me share with you another story out here. And this is an action story which I actually saw in my very, very first job in my career. I was heading a branch. I was given to head a branch. I had a sales team reporting into me, and this was a loss-making branch, and it was trying to sell computer courses. And that was the time when India had just started to open up to computers, and the software industry was not even formed. And I was trying to sell computer. I was working in this branch, and I had a lot of counselors who used to communicate with people. And then I found this was a loss-making branch. And I just went there and started observing the sales teams. And I found that, there was something which was completely missing. And I went and told the sales team. And this was the shocking thing. And this has actually happened. This is real. The story I'm telling you is a real story. I told them, please forget your targets. I'm taking away your targets. And they were all shocked. Everybody was surprised. How come? This is a young guy. He's just come out of campus. And he's telling us, maybe he's crazy. He doesn't understand. This is a loss-making center. He's been made a branch manager to turn around the branch. And he is telling the sales team, forget your targets. And I told them something else. I said, just focus on the person on the other side. Just focus on the person on the other side and make a good friend. Your job is about just making a good friend. Just make a good friend. That's it. Just listen to his problem. Listen to his story. Listen to his story. Listen to his problem. That's it. And this small shift, this very small shift, that entire business turned that center became a profit-making center. It became a role model center amongst almost 120 branches in the country. It started growing and we grew at 1.300% growth is what we were recording. And this was just a very simple thing that I had observed. And that observation was, if I am not looking at the person, what was happening was the salespeople were looking at the money. They were looking at how much I have got my targets and how much is this person going to give me. It was about me. The story started becoming about me. What am I getting in this deal? And when it's happening that way, nobody is interested. It is only if you are looking at me, you start. And this is something which I have found as a marketing person consistent across my 30 plus years of my career. Let's look at this one simple ad. I don't know how many of you are from these times when, this was advertising times, right? And here is Sachin Tendulkar. Those who are not from India, Sachin Tendulkar is a cricketer who is, considered as God in cricket. And in India, a lot of parents see him, a lot of parents want their children to become like Sachin Tendulkar because he is so famous. It's like a heroic figure. At one point of time, today it is Virat Kohli or somebody, the younger generation, but at one point of time, Sachin Tendulkar was the person. And the message was, Boost is the secret of my energy. So Boost was a drink which, the problem was children would not drink milk, that was a big problem for parents. They did not like milk. And so they would add in this Boost into it, and the company came up with this idea of having Sachin Tendulkar as the mascot of the brand, and then he set out this message, Boost is the secret of my energy. He was trying to tell a story. So what is the thing trying to do out here? What I told you in the very first slide, relatability. I'm trying to create a relation between Sachin Tendulkar and this young child who wants to become like Sachin Tendulkar. For the parent, it is like he's a role model. I want my kid to become like him. And that's why this message gets across. And this was one of the very successful campaigns. Let's look at, Levi's. And this is exactly, again, here we all know this, rugged men who wear them. So it's telling you a story of something. And what is it doing? It's a cowboy. It's pulling you into a story of a cowboy. And you start relating to it and you want to look rugged. And you know that in India, the place where this jeans is manufactured out here in India, the same. Actually, there is I've got this kind of, some pictures, and it's the same place where, 5 or 6 different brands are actually making their jeans in the same factory. So one, they're putting a Levi's logo, one they're putting a Wrangler logo, one they're putting some local brand. And do you know the price difference that is there between all these, just the brand thing which is put on? It's the same place. It's coming from the same area. It's getting manufactured. It's getting stitched out there. The fabric is coming from the same manufacturer. And yet there is a logo, and suddenly there is a story around it. And what you're buying is the story. You're not just buying the jeans, right? There is the same area. The jeans is available to you at one third the price in some place. But you're buying the story of whatever that cowboy is out there and what you want to relate to and what you want to show the world. So there's a story. Everybody is trying to tell a story. The brands are always trying to tell a story. So why stories is very simple. If I ask you, do you remember the maths algorithms from your college school days? Do you remember the maths that was taught to you, or whatever that one subject that you do not like? And you will say, oh, I don't remember. But if I ask you to the hare and the tortoise story, if I just put that image in front of you, do you remember the hare and the tortoise story? I'm sure a lot of people will say yes. The monkey cap story, the fables that you heard about, you remember them after so many years. Data is forgotten. All that you learned is forgotten. Look at it when you travel on flight. Now the flights, last 6 months people are not traveling. But before that, when you traveled on a flight, you had a ticket, right? The flight ticket. You saw the seat number and you knew the seat number, and still you would keep on checking when you boarded the flight, what is the seat number? You forget. You see the data and you're forgetting it. But a story that is told so many years back in your school, you still remember it. That clearly tells you why stories is what, people as human minds, we connect with stories. Stories get passed on. People pass on stories from generation to generation. You look at mythological stories in India. You got the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. It was never written, it was just passed on by people. Later on, people started writing about it. But these stories have been passed on from generations. and they just go on. Organizations have stories, right? A lot of the place that I come, I worked at Mastech, so there was a huge story around Mastech. When I worked at Ad Factors, there were stories around Ad Factors. These form the culture of an organization. They get passed on from one generation to the next generation of employees. The stories of the founders, the stories of how the organization happened. All those are stories which are passed on, and they are links to decision making. People take decisions based on stories that they hear, and they inspire action. I showed you in the first two examples clearly how action has been inspired. You tell a story and you inspire an action. So you don't get people to take action by just looking at some numbers, or you get them to emotionally start. So even when I got the sales team to start making friends, what happened is basically they stopped looking at people as money. They started seeing people for who they are, people, and they started listening to their stories. And when they started listening to their stories, they started understanding their problems. When they started understanding their problems, they understood their dreams. And when they understood their dreams, they started thinking whether this, what I have to offer, fits into the dream of that person. And when they started matching their dreams with what they had to offer, things started shifting. People started closing. Business started to happen. This is what inspires action. The greatest storyteller perhaps in the known recent times is Steve Jobs. I'm sure everyone knows about the way he launched when he went on stage, and he created this huge thing about people waiting to see Steve Jobs on stage to launch the next device, the next innovation, the next whatever he would come up with. And I don't know how many of you remember this one, but it's there on YouTube, and if you can go and check it out. When the iPhone was launched, it was the combination of the phone and the internet and the iPod all coming together into one device. A very historical change in the way things are. If today all that you see that people are hooked on to the phone, this was the starting point. And he's the best storyteller that you would see. He would get on stage and tell a story. He would weave stories and get audiences hooked on. You never found his presentations heavy. They were not like too much of data, not too much of stuff. It is very minimalist, and that was his style of storytelling. He would just have visuals, and through visuals he could tell stories. So beautiful stories being told. He could get a concept across to people. Always it was about storytelling. Steve Jobs is an example of a great leader. All great leaders are great storytellers. Here is another example of what stories do and the power of stories. So this is significant objects. Some of you must have heard about the significant objects. This is an idea that one person got of that you pick up these kind of pieces, small pieces of antique pieces that are discarded, or $1 each. He picked it up and he said, let me just check it out. How can I increase the value of these? So he took it to a person, and he said, he took it to writers, to authors, to people who would write stories. So he took the whole thing to storytellers, and he said, take these objects and write stories around it, and then give it back to me. And this is an experiment. Let me see this $1 object. What am I able to create out of this when I attach a story to this? And this was then put out on eBay. And what happened next was, phenomenal. So $128 of investments, 128 pieces approximately of items that was picked up. $3,600 is the value that was actually got to them when a story was attached to each of those objects. Because what happened, the same object, right? $1 is what you're picking it up, and I attach a story to it, and suddenly you have this multiply into what is the percentage of multiplication that's happening. So you can actually measure the subjective value, can be measured objectively, what he says. So emotional value is that what you're attaching to that particular thing. The story adds the emotional value to whether it's a bid proposal, whether it is any sales pitch or anything that you're taking down. When a story is, the emotion is attached to the whole thing, it starts becoming completely different. And finally, please, on all sides, I've heard that, this is because humans are there, right? Finally, it is humans on all sides. You're dealing with a person at the end of the day, and a person is emotions. Whether it is somebody who is at the top or anywhere, finally it is works with emotions. So we all know this ethos, pathos, lagos. I'm sure all of us are aware of this again. Very, if I have to persuade people, and so pathos is where I start looking at the emotional side of anything that I'm putting. Obviously, I need to have my facts in place. When you're doing your proposals, you're doing anything, when you're making a sales page, obviously when my sales team was selling out there was reputation. I mean, nobody is going to buy into something if there is no reputation behind it. You need to have the reputation, you need to have the data, you need to have the facts and behind supporting it, but finally you need to have emotion. You need to bring in the element of emotion. That's how the persuasion is created. And we know it again if you look at the TED Talks, all these TED Talks, they actually, what is that? It's an idea which is being, put out to people. Anything that's happening in the world is an idea, right? Somebody's telling you this is right and this is what it is. You're always constantly, your ideas, and actually they did a study again, and this was like they're looking at the brain patterns of people and where they taking those stories of the speaker and the audience, and they found that the same brain areas were triggered when the person was creating an emotion with the audience. So actually, you're implanting a story or emotion into the audience. It is almost happening as you are telling a story. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just break it out for a small film. Now, this is a Hindi film which was called Gully Boy. It is based in the slums in Mumbai. And those who are aware of the slums in Mumbai are aware that, this is a place like currently in the COVID times. Dharavi is one of the places which is, people were very worried about how this is, because if you start seeing, there is no way you can do isolation. There is no way that you can, look at social distancing. It's not possible. It's a very tough area, but there's a lot of ambition, a lot of hard work happens out here. It's one of the largest slums in Asia, and the story is based out there. It's in Hindi. The song, I'm playing a song from a film. It's in Hindi, but it is okay. You might not understand the words, but when you listen to the song, you might get the story. So I'm just going to play this, and this is the crux of what I'm trying to tell you.
जितने भी चीरफाड़ आर्टिस्ट हुए थे ना आज तक, सबके सब के फक्कड़ बीच चुरा के फिर उसी भूत की कहानी बना के बोले, फिर जाके कुछ उखाड़े। बस ये तो तेरे अंदर की सच्ची कहानी, तेरे अंदर का लाभ फट के बाहर आन दे। अपना टाइम आएगा, उठ जा अपनी राह से दूर जा अब तलाश में, परवाज़ देख परवाने की आसमां भी सर उठाएगा। आएगा अपना टाइम आएगा, मेरे जैसा शाना लाला तुझे ना मिल पाएगा। ये शब्दों का ज्वाला मेरी बेड़ियां पिघलाएगा, जितना तूने बोया है तू उतना ही तो खाएगा। ऐसा मेरा ख्वाब है जो डर को भी सताएगा, जितना मेरा ख्वाब अब कैसे तू दफनाएगा। अब हौसले से जीने दे, अब हौसले हमें सीने में, हर रास्ते को चीरेंगे, हम कामयाबी जीएंगे। सब कुछ लिया पसीने से, मतलब क्या अब जीने में, क्यों? क्योंकि अपना टाइम आएगा, तू नंगा ही तो आया है, क्या घंटा लेकर जाएगा। अपना टाइम आएगा, अपना टाइम आएगा, अपना टाइम आएगा, तू नंगा ही तो आया है, क्या घंटा लेकर जाएगा। अपना टाइम आएगा, अपना टाइम आएगा, अपना टाइम आएगा, तू नंगा ही तो आया है, क्या घंटा लेकर। किसी का हाथ नहीं था सर पर, यहाँ पर आया खुद की मेहनत से मैं, जितनी ताकत किस्मत में नहीं उतनी रहमत में है। फिर भी लड़का से मत नहीं है, क्योंकि गैरत नहीं है, जरूरत है हमारे रज़ी की और जुर्रत की, इज्जत की है, आफत की, हिमाकत की, इबादत की, अदालत ये है, चाहत की, मोहब्बत की, अमानत की, जीतने की, आबादत की है, शोहरत की, अब लालच नहीं है, तेरे भाई जैसा कोई हारिज नहीं है। इज्जत करते ही बरकती है, क्यों? क्योंकि अपना टाइम आएगा, तू नंगा ही तो आया है, क्या घंटा लेकर जाएगा। अपना टाइम आएगा, अपना टाइम आएगा, अपना टाइम आएगा, तू नंगा ही तो आया है, क्या घंटा लेकर जाएगा। तेरे लगा ही तो आया था, क्या तू घंटा लेकर जाएगा। अपना टाइम आएगा, अपना टाइम आएगा।
So this is a movie which is actually based on, there's actually a real group which is called Gully Boys, and it is out there in Dharavi. And these people face some of the most difficult situation, in terms of what the circumstances are. But they had dreams, they have dreams, and so they actually created a rap group like this. And there's a story of the struggle of this particular. So this is the kind of a story you will find the structure almost exists in almost, whether it's a Bollywood film, whether it's a Hollywood film, a lot of the stories that are written follow this pattern. So how do people connect with stories, and why do they want to connect with stories? Because there is something incomplete there out there. That is why they want to connect with stories, and they connect with the character. So what is happening in the story is this: the hero of the story, the character. The character is somebody who's facing difficult, and he has a desire. He wants to become successful as a rapper, but the whole world is against him. All the situation is against him. His parents are against him, and the people who come from the moneyed families, they are, they put him down all the time. So there is conflict. There is conflict. So there's a huge amount of conflict that is there in the film. He is having conflict at the level of his own family. He has a conflict at the level of the fact that from where he comes. He has a conflict from people who are actually well off. So much of conflict, but there is a desire. So this character and the desire and the conflict, almost in every storytelling that we do, when we look at it, and the films that, like even the Heroes project that I'm working on currently, which is actually profiling stories of people who I see as the real heroes in India, and people who have got stories which are so powerful, that it's amazing these stories are. And every week I'm releasing about 2 such short films which I'm working on. And the idea is that because I feel good stories need to be told, and more people need to know good stories of real heroes. And here is another film that I just want to play out for you. This is inspired by a true story.
मेरा नाम बद्रीनाथ है, पर स्कूल के दोस्त मुझे बिट्टू बुलाते हैं। सोच रहे होंगे मैं पहले स्कूल क्यों नहीं गया। जब गांव में स्कूल था ही नहीं तो जाता कैसे। 75 साल की उम्र में अब जाके स्कूल बना, और आज मैं भी स्टूडेंट बना। ওই আমার মনের মানুষ শোনো তো, একটি কথা শোনাই গো, কথা বোঝো যদি। ওই আমি শৈশবে ফিরে আইলাম স্কুলে পড়িয়া, স্কুলে পড়িয়া।
So what you saw out here is what I've been telling right from the beginning. Don't tell a story. PNG is telling a story out here, and this story is of Bittu, and this is based on a real story. So there's a whole thing which they're doing on the social side, and what this story is, and what is the kind of views that this video has got. I mean, you'll be surprised. This has got more than 1 million views, on the social media. I think it's more than a few million views on the social media channels. So you can imagine that Even in the world of social media, the brands have started understanding that I don't need to sell my product. I need to sell a story. I need to tell a story that when you buy my product, when you're supporting buying my product, I'm supporting good work which is happening. So there is a story being told out here and it is actually supporting good. So you can see that this is how storytelling, many brands have moved towards this kind of storytelling on the social platforms, because people are no longer watching advertising, they're consuming content. They're not consuming advertising. And this is long back that people stopped, interruption marketing started dying. And what we are seeing is emergence of people consuming content, and visual storytelling is what is coming up in the world. So it is not about you. So don't sell. It's not about you. This is the thing that I, as a marketing person, as a brand person, this is what I don't, it's not about you. It's not about your brand. It is not about your organization. It is not about your proposal. Because we always sit on this side and we start thinking from this side. Actually, the whole thing is tell a story. It's about me, the person who's sitting, the hero of the story. It's about my challenges. It's about my pain. It is about my conflict. Tell me how you can take me from here to there. It's always from here to there. The story is I'm here and not happy. I'm not satisfied. I'm having a gap. Can you take me there? Can your brand, can your proposal, this is where I'm struggling with. Can what you're offering take me from here to there? I am actually building a vision for you. I'm building a story for you. I'm taking you from here to there. Show me a plan. Show me a plan for me. What is your plan for me? It's always about me. Tell me a story that includes me, because everybody is selfish. At the end of the day, the story is about the person. Whether it's an organization, finally you're dealing with somebody sitting out there, and that story might be, there'll be layers of stories that you will find. The layers of stories are, you might be dealing with a CFO, you might be dealing with a CEO, you might be dealing with a technical lead or whoever. There is his story that he has got, which you need to understand. There's a story of the organization, it is there, which is you need to understand. There's a story of why this is being done, you need to understand. And this all calls for becoming a storyteller or a story listener, in a way that not only are you telling a story, but you are listening to a story. You are listening, and the more you listen, and the most marketing guys, the best of the brand guys, they're great listeners. They listen. They listen. And this is empathy. The key word out here is empathy. You move from this side. You move from this side about, it's all about me. It's about my proposal, why I am good, the features. These are the features I've got. This is what I've got. This is why you should buy from me. And I move from here and I move into a story. And I'm moving into your story, and how I can make a difference to your story. I will just, close with this last short film. This is my
पापा,
हाँ?
आपकी मैथ्स कैसी थी?
मैथ्स गुड गुड. ये कहां से मिला? अमोल राणे 3 आउट ऑफ 100. मैथ्स टीचर का बेटा, विनोद राणे का बेटा, गेट आउट. आई सेड गेट आउट. आउट. उस दिन से ना मैं अपनी शर्म को भूल पाया और ना वो अपने गुस्से को. इस पेपर ने मेरी जिंदगी बदल दी.
मेरे पापा को 3 आउट ऑफ 100 नहीं आ सकते.
रिया, अब इस उम्र में मैथ्स.
पापा प्लीज, मेरे लिए.
में देखूं मैं खुद को, मुझे खुद में देखे तू, कुछ में सीखूं कैसे नया सा, कैसे कुछ मुझसे सीखे तू, तुझ में देखूं मैं खुद को, मुझे खुद में देखे तू, कुछ मैं सीखूं तुझसे नया सा, कुछ मुझसे सीखे तू. Innovation is equal to invention. ना मैं बोलूं ना तू कहता, पर दिल रूबरू, बस तू जाने या मैं जानूं, what I feel for you. अल्फाज नहीं एहसास होते हैं, कुछ रिश्ते बहुत खास होते हैं, कुछ रिश्ते बहुत खास होते हैं. कैसे हो कैसे मोल. I'm sorry. Life is good.
So this is again, brands are today telling stories. This is again, if you go and check on YouTube, you'll find the millions of views that this one video has got. So here LG is not even trying to sell the products, right? It's not put anywhere that you should buy LG, because it's got this feature or it's got that feature. It's telling you a story and putting you in the story. And through an emotion, connecting you to the brand, it is connecting you to the products and everything else. And this is a story which you relate with. They start understanding audience. So like in marketing or digital strategy that I work on, I start looking at behaviors. I start looking at, how the audience, which is the audience I'm targeting, what is the behaviors, how do they behave, what is it that, what kind of stories they are, and, what is the gap, and how do I connect with that audience. And so this is what is happening out here. Brands have become storytellers. They're no longer telling you buy LG because of, buy this refrigerator because, this is the reason, or buy this television. Here you're finding through the social media, brands have started becoming storytellers. They're not selling, they're all telling a story. And with that, I think I would end this session. I would say that, become storytellers. Selling always happens. You just have to become good storytellers. Understand the story. Become a storyteller. It's not about you. It is about your client. It is about whoever is there on the other side. That's how stories are made and that's how stories are told. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this sessions, and I'm open to any questions if there are any.
So I think let me check the questions which we have here.
Yeah, Abhijit, I think Mark is online. So Mark, you go ahead, ask your question.
Hey Sanjay, how you doing? I'm calling from Washington D.C. Where did you get this initial interest in storytelling? Did you pick it up as a child, or did you start after your first job? How did this come to you? It's an amazing series of thoughts you bring to the audience. Thank you.
So thanks. I think for me, the storytelling was always there. I was always into stories during my childhood. I would read a lot of stories. So my dad would bring in a lot of, what we call in India the Amar Chitra Kathas, or those small books about mythology, Indian mythological stories. So I think that's where I actually first got interested in stories. I would always read those books and I would get lost. I actually could get into a story and my imagination could go wild. I could just get into the story, into the characters, start feeling. And I was a topper in history in Maharashtra. In the entire board of the state, I was the topper. And this is in the board exams. And why I was the topper was because, again, history was stories. For me, history was also about stories. I would actually get lost in those stories. I would actually feel that I was visiting those places. I was in that time. So I actually started getting into, that's what used to happen with me in the school. I think I just carried it forward into marketing. So when I went into sales and marketing, so I started telling stories for brands. So when I was telling stories, when I was listening to stories, and now I was telling stories for brands, and then it's been a fascinating journey. And I think storytelling is something that I found it is really takes it's fascinating. But I think also believe that everybody's a storyteller. It's only that we don't see that side of us. We don't see that because when you're trying to tell your child something, and we look at any child, they are all natural storytellers. Children are natural storytellers. They will tell you a story why they need something, and they'll have a very good reason why they need something. They can create a story around it and they'll tell you because they're natural storytellers. Nobody's told them a no. Nobody's told them no, you can't have it, right? So they're storytellers. We forget our storytelling because storytelling is the only way humans can connect. I connect with you only through stories. I connect with the guy who's driving, a vehicle, a cab out there through his stories. And when I connect with stories, I create a very powerful human bond. And brands and marketing, we just do that. We just are always telling stories. So I think it started with your question, where did it start? It started very early in my childhood. I would love to listen to stories. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you, Mark.
That was a great presentation. Thanks, Sanjay. I always believe that facts tell. Let me put my video on. Facts tell, but stories sell. So question to you is, a lot of times in proposals, we all get caught up in features, benefits, etc. And how do we make the story personal about a decision maker?
So the answer that I found, so that even when this comes to me also when I'm pitching to clients, right? Okay. So when I'm an agency, as an agency, when I pitch to clients, when I was an agency and I used to pitch to some of the top brands, I've worked with Sony, I've worked with Pepsi India, I've worked with so many, so I would Parley products. So you would take a proposal and pitch, the idea or the concept, because I'm constantly selling a concept as an agency, right? So I'm taking a concept and sending it to a brand and taking it out there. I think for me, always the whole thing was again about the person I'm dealing with. Because organization can look like a big non-personal entity out there. It looks like a very non-personal entity. It's, when I talk about Parley products, it looks like a very non-personal brand. I'm dealing with something and I'm taking something. Obviously, I need to understand the brand and all that. But beyond that, it was that marketing head, the person who was actually taking the call. I needed to understand his story. So I would actually understand his story. What was his problem? So what was the challenges he's facing? So I actually, that really used to open up a lot of things, because I would just go and not even try to sell first. I would just try to just understand where he is. What are the challenges that he's facing as sitting in his seat? And that itself opened up a lot of things. I understood the pressures that he was having. And these pressures were so huge coming from different brands, and this brand is not working in the South. Like Parle G was not working, the biscuits were not working in the South market. So he was constantly under pressure from his, bosses, this Parle G is not working in the South market, what do we do about it? And so then that gave me a window into understanding, okay, but so I had to make him succeed, right? So I finally had to understand his story. So everywhere there's a person behind it. A decision maker is a person. Somebody is there out there. Somebody is person out there. And finally, for him also there is a customer. For the brand also, the end is a customer. Is a consumer. In the case of this Parle-G example, the end was a consumer, and we opened up the door with children. And we understood that in the South, the characters are, larger than life. So the Shaktiman is a character. I don't know whether you heard about Shaktiman. So Shaktiman is a character and in South it is crazy. Anything which is a hero or something which is there is larger than life. They will make larger than life statues. They will make larger than life posters. Everything is big. So we actually took Shaktiman, Mukesh Khanna. We took him to Chennai, to South. And we did a huge roadshow out there with we had 3 lakh children turning up for that one day. And we asked them to cut, to do a cutting of the Parle-G biscuits as an entry. 3 packets of Parle-G you cut and you bring with the advertisement. And then that's your entry fees. That's your entry, how you enter into the place. We had more than 2+ lakh children turn up out there. The market shifted for him. He was top. But I had to understand his problem. I had to understand the customer, his customer's story. How will I engage with that audience? I had to understand in the South there is a star craze. And when I understood that, then I could create something which would take it to the market and make it a successful campaign. So I was always, stories are whether I was making a pitch to the client, I was understanding his story. And when I was trying to also take it, not only his story, but the story of his consumer, I had to understand his story. And for all that, I had to immerse myself into the story of this guy, understand sitting in his seat, what is the pressure that he's having. I had to get into the consumer shoes, understand from his behavior, what the hell is that child what is going to move that child to start, and then the whole thing shifted. His southern market started shifting. The glucose Parle-G suddenly started becoming it became a good market for him. The whole business shifted in that market. So we could demonstrate, but that needed for me to go there to understand the story of the children and to understand the story of this head of the marketing who was sitting in that company. So I think finally at the end of it, there are human beings on the other side. So like even in the foundations, when I start looking at it, now imagine this, you saw this Bittu's film, right? You saw the film which I played, which was Bittu, that story of this, adult, the senior guy who was studying. It's a real story actually. Now imagine if I write a proposal and I send it to a company and say, I need funds. And I send this one particular story along with it. This one particular film along with it. That, this is why I need funds to open up so many schools out here. What do you think we'll get? So because the proposals come to me dozens. But when I get this story along with it, I will understand the real pain. I'll understand, what's really happening there and why I should, support this cause. So I found even in fundraising that it is not the proposals that you're sending out to organize. Because I'm a board member in Mastic Foundation, right? I get a lot of proposals. But it is when the stories come that I'm able to connect with the cause and I'm able to do something about it. I will move. The stories move people finally. Data is coming from all over the place. This is my experience.
Thank you.
This is my experience. This is what I wanted to share.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we are Sunil Agarwal. He has raised a question. Yeah, Sunil, go ahead.
Hi Sanjay, excellent tips. I love the presentation. But when I think about my proposals and I want to understand how do we respond using a story to a proposal which is subject to very quantitative evaluation criteria?
So the same thing that I just said, this I can only speak from my experience, which comes and so I wouldn't know what for me, the closest that comes to me, because that's where I deal with such things, is as a foundation head. Because I get proposals, I get proposals from non-profits. I get proposals from different non-profits coming to me. So where do I actually start saying that this is something which I need to support, and where do I take, because everything is good, right? For me as a board member sitting out there on the non-profits on the board, I'm seeing all proposals coming to me. I'm now getting into that chair. What starts shifting me? It's actually when I start looking at the theory of persuasion, which I said there's to be credibility, obviously. So credibility comes into it, that I need to understand this non-profit is credible. The persons who are reading this is credible. Of course, I need that. If it's not credible, I cannot put money behind it, right? It's money which is coming from the company, and it is a CSR act that I have to report those funds. So I have to look at the credibility of the. I need to look at the past data. Obviously, I need to look at data. I cannot say that I'll not look at these two elements. But what swings the whole thing, which is added to the whole thing, is Ashish Satav or the Girish Kulkarni or the Adik Kadam and their story. Their story is what actually gets me to take that jump. So I need the basics. I need credibility. I cannot take a decision as a non-profit board member without having that understanding these two elements. If I don't have these two, but these two are being taken care of by team. My team looks at the basics and says, "ये qualify हो गया, ये दोनों चीज qualify है." Finally, when it comes to my place, I've looked at all this. Okay, have you qualified all this? These are the 5 requirements I have. Have you qualified all these 5 requirements from all these proposals? Only then send it to to us so that we can take a call. And when it comes to us sitting in the board, we have seen the basics are taken care of. I'm not looking at whether that my team has done it. Now I get into the next level and start looking at Ashish Satav versus somebody else, and there is story behind Ashish Satav. There is a story behind all these people. So that story also comes to me. And what makes me, and I cannot even tell you this, is that a quantifiable measure that why I'm taking that decision, but emotionally it is sitting behind in my subconscious mind. It is there in my subconscious mind. The story is sitting in my mind, and that tilts that decision somewhere. And because I know something, I know that story. If I don't know it at all, then I'm just looking at data. Then I'm going to compare this data with that data with that data. I'm just going to do that. But because the story has come to me also, it switches me, because the data is being looked at by my team. When it comes to me, I'm looking at something else. I'm looking at something beyond. Sitting as a board, I will start looking at something beyond just the data and numbers. I'll start going beyond that. So I said, this is what I see it. This is my experience sitting on the other side when I look at proposals in the very different space, you might say. It's a non-profit, but that's how I see, and I assume a lot of people see it like that.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, Sanjay. Thank you for that insight. Thank you.
So we have to take a questions now, and he has given us a chart. He has written his question in chart. This is basically, how do you go from storytelling to story writing?
How do you go from that story writing is a practice.
Yeah.
You need to start writing. When you start writing, so I published a book about a year back. It's a story again. It's a story book which is there on Amazon. It's called The Storyteller's Secret. It's a fiction story that I wrote. So how do you get from story telling to story writing? Is actually you sit and write. There's no other way. I mean, you start writing and you might write bad, initially. You might not be able to put it down. But you need to do it. You need to start writing. You can start writing a blog. You can start writing, something you have to start. LinkedIn, what happened? Look at LinkedIn today. People connect on LinkedIn through stories, right? Look at the guys who are creating the maximum connections on LinkedIn. They are storytellers. Each one of them is storytellers. They are not telling you come and buy from me. Nobody's putting that you come and buy from me. Nobody's putting an ad, I'm the best proposal guy. You cannot put it, right? Nobody's going to believe you. The moment you start telling people I'm the best proposal guy, you come to me and you buy from me, nobody's going to believe you, right? But if you are a good storyteller, people will connect with your stories. They will connect with you. And you will find that a lot of these kind of people who are actually great storytellers, they have a great following. A lot of people connect with them, and that's how they're building their business. That's how they're building their business. They're good storytellers. Whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's on YouTube or whether it is on Instagram or whether it is somewhere else, all social media influencers, all the people who are into freelancing, for example, great storytellers, differentiate themselves from the rest. The entire platform is about storytelling. So I think you have to start writing, and you have to have the rigor of writing. You need to have persistence of writing. You need to do it. So sometimes I also lag on that. I don't say that I have this. But as a marketing person, when I'm supporting a lot of the companies, I know it. This is how it works. I clearly tell all my clients, consistency. Consistency is the first thing. Start and do something. Put it out constantly. Secondly, know your audience. Obviously, you should know your audience. Give them what they want. Are you making a difference to your audience? Constantly put out something that's adding value to your audience. So I think that's how you start building this. And there is a science and there's an algorithm. So every platform has its own algorithm. LinkedIn has its algorithm. Facebook has its own algorithm, and so on. Social media, when you're doing storytelling, every platform has a different algorithm how it works. But I think the first thing is build a consistency to what you. Craig Gordon, who's a marketing guru, has been writing blogs for almost 10-15 years now. Every day he writes consistently. Not a single day he's missed out. You know why he writes? He tells why he writes. He says that I write not just for the sake of other people I'm writing, but it helps me to crystallize my ideas. Because when I start writing and putting it down on blog, I'm actually made to think about something. And when I'm thinking of something, I actually am doing more research on it, more finding on it. If I did this workshop with a webinar with you guys, I need to put some thought right behind before I sit for the webinar. It really helps me. So as much as what I'm sharing, it's helping me also to understand, put it all together. So I think a lot of you need the discipline and persistence of doing things. That's how it works.
Yeah, Abhijit, now we can take an open questions. Yeah.
Okay, so Sanjay, these are some of the questions which have come. I think this has come from Bedrishi Saha, and I think 4 people also are supporting it. What are some of the good books, resources to learn basics of storytelling, if there is any?
Oh, there are quite a few books which you can look at on storytelling. But if you ask me, I'll just pull out one of the books that I'm reading right now, which is interesting. I found it a very good book which I'm reading. So it's by James Moore. The title is Storytelling itself, a guide on how to tell a story with storytelling techniques and storytelling success. So this is a good book. I just started reading it some time back. Then Talk Like TED is a very good book. I'm sure many people would have seen that. And there are a few more books which are there on storytelling. I'll share it maybe later on with Abhijit, and maybe he can share it with the group. That's some of the books that I have followed on, which I have read and which I have found interesting. But there's a series on YouTube which is called Brand Storytelling. That should tell you how the brand storytelling is changing in the world. And for me as a marketing person, that's a very interesting insight which I got almost 2 years back. And this entire Heroes of India project which I started is keeping that in mind. So you can also follow this Heroes of India project. But I'm actually telling one story a week kind of thing. It's coming through films, short films about heroes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the second question is also very similar. Any key pointers for storytelling to kickstart for the bid professional? And this is from Yashlal Jardani.
So if you ask me, is there something that you need to? I think the basic thing that I noticed all through my career is in marketing or whatever is empathy. The keyword was like just small. There's a small shift, right? From, like I said, it's not about me. It's not about my, if I can start getting, and every day if you can start looking at how I can empathize with somebody else or some other person. If I start building that skill of getting into the story of somebody else, I think that's the most important attitude. I would say attitude that is needed. Good storytellers have this attitude. They can actually get into the skin of, if you're the great filmmakers, how do they tell stories? How are they making these films? Obviously, there is a structure to every film. You know that it starts like this. There is a conflict and there is a climax. Something is happening in the story, but they actually get great actors. They get into the skin of the character. So you start building this kind of a thing that you're observing stories everywhere, and you can actually take every incident from your life is a story. Every incident from your life can become a story, right? Almost every incident. Something that has happened in your life sometime can actually trigger off something for you. And you can actually start thinking of it as a story. So I think if you start looking at it that way, that what happened today is something that happened. Is there a story in it? I start so the attitude of constantly looking at stories, constantly looking at. So I think it's an attitude shift that is important. It's a very fine line. Obviously, there are skills, there are methods, there are techniques. All that is available. All that is available. If you go on YouTube, you go on LinkedIn, you'll find all kinds of methods of storytelling. You'll find a lot of courses on. You'll find a lot of salespeople, marketing people, even business people today are suddenly wanting to learn storytelling. But the point is, it's a simple thing. The first thing that is there is the attitude of getting into the character, as we call it. Getting on the other side. It's not me. It's about somebody else. Can I start getting into Abhijit's shoes? Can I start thinking like Abhijit? Abhijit वहाँ पे बैठा है. Abhijit के दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है? Can I start actually, feeling like Abhijit? Oh, Abhijit का क्या चल? So, I mean, if I start just doing that in conversations, with my own family members to start with, my friends, and then I start expanding that circle and I start looking at stories. I see an auto rickshaw driver and I start thinking of his story. What is his story? What's happening? Because when I'm starting to listen, then I start building that storytelling muscle. It's a muscle that you're building up constantly. And you'll find that this is something that you will start doing in everything that you do. Whether you're writing a proposal or something, you'll always start thinking story. You'll start from, as I said, ethos, pathos, logos. 3 elements to persuasion, right? You need the credibility, you need the data, but you need to start thinking, अरे इसमें story क्या है? क्या एक thread है क्या? कुछ thread है? कुछ दिख रहा है क्या? कुछ ऐसा thread? Because the story has a thread, right? Some thread is running through. And there are stories into stories. Stories into stories. एक तुम्हारा CFO है, CEO है, उसके नीचे कंपनी है, उसके बीच ऊपर ब्रांड है, उसके नीचे एम्प्लॉइज है, उसके नीचे उसका कस्टमर्स है. ये पूरा थ्रेड कहां पे जा रहा है? If I start thinking of that thread, when I start thinking that thread, then there's a storytelling muscle that I start building. I'm getting out from myself. I have to get out from myself because the first thing I have to break as a storyteller is I'm constantly always about myself. I break that. That's an attitude. I think if you start just doing that on a daily basis, start looking at stories all over, you will become a good storyteller. I'm sure everybody can become a great storyteller.
Okay, there's another question. This is from Leonard Bentley. He asks, we receive a lot of prescriptive RFPs that require us to stick to their questions and keep attachments to a minimum. How would you advise incorporating storytelling into these bids?
So if you ask me if there is a question which is absolutely technical that has been asked to you, obviously you cannot do anything, right? You have to give what technically the question is asking. But it will somewhere ask you, I'm sure they're going to ask you for your credibility somewhere. They're going to ask you what you have done in the past. They'll ask you what are the case studies that you have. They might ask you, so there will be places where you can actually bring in stories out of from what you have done in the past. You have to start looking around. Is there a question? Because I'm sure there's a credibility question that will come in somewhere, saying, what have you done something like this in the past? Can you put it down? Now here it comes to writing maybe a case study, as you call it. So if it comes to that, you have to share a case study. It's a story, right? Case study is finally a story. So I can write a very bland case study. I can write a very bland story out there. Or I could actually go and get deep into a story and actually pick out a story from that and actually make it in a way that people start. So the data is data, right? Data will be compared with data. So one company sharing a data, second company sharing. But can I look at in the data there is story? Is there some story in the data itself? Can you convert data into a story? It's an interesting insight, and there is work being done in that area also. How can data be converted into a story? But you have to look for opportunities where it is being asked that you share something which is related to case studies, related to something you have done in the past, some interaction that you have had with some other clients in the past, something which is coming in. I'm sure there is scope of putting down something in those spaces.
Thank you, Sanjay. And I think this is one of the questions. Would you like to share effective do's and don'ts of storyboarding as its effectiveness depends on individuals' mindset / prejudice and temperament? It comes from Amar Jaiswal, Pursuit Manager of ATS.
Okay, so this is something which you think that it comes from here. Okay, let me tell you, there's a slightly unrelated kind of a concept. I was organizing an international customers meet at Mastec, and I had clients from all over the world, senior guys, CEOs coming from the US and from UK and from CEOs, CXOs, those kind of people. And I think it was a Jodhpur or some other place, and we were staying in a palace. And the first session I held, I had called this person called Nitya Shanti. He's a monk who's from an XLRI. It was XLRI who became a monk for 6 years. And I asked him to come and do a session with these people. Now, these people had come for business discussions, right? They were very senior guys. And when they come into the room, you can see the stiffness. You can feel the stiffness of how they came into the room. And I'm sure they were all wondering, what is this, Eastern philosophy, some monk who's called here to do a session to, with all of us. And at the end of the session, that was the favorite session in the entire international customer meet. They all cling to Nitya Shanti. They all wanted to talk to him. They all started, breaking down their very stern, the outer thing, and it actually broke their what you call as the resistance to talk, to be guarded, to put that guard constantly on. It all just fell. What did I learn from that experience? The learning was that beyond all the guards that we put, everything that we carry inside, we are all the same. Whether it is in the US or whether it's in UK or whether it's India, the human being inside is the same. The same emotions we carry, the same stuff we carry. So if you ask me, the emotion of fear is there across. The fear of loss, the fear of something going wrong, my project getting if I give it to these guys, can they do it? The fears that I hold, the insecurities that I have, the challenges that I have, the desires that I hold. I mean, these are human emotions that are constant in all people. They might look like they have got circumstances might be different. Like what if I deal with this Praveen Kulkarni was his name in Parle-G. Or if I was dealing with somebody in the Pepsi India, it was a different person. Maybe his personality was different, but inside the emotions were the same, right? They all want to succeed finally. They all want to show up to the management. Very simple put in the corporate world. What is everybody? I don't want to say it so bluntly, but the point is everybody wants to succeed, right? Everybody wants to show up. Everybody wants to say, I did a great job. So finally, the guy who's taking a decision is sitting on something which is like, is hot for him, and he wants to take a decision that's right? He will not take a decision just like that, because for him it is like, Mera career, it's about his own career. So emotions are there. So human being, the final emotions are going, you just analyze it now. If you analyze your 4 or 5 clients and you sit with me, I'll tell you, you'll find that there are certain emotions which are common running through all the people. And there are certain things, and that's how you start, you might customize it, obviously, you might customize things, but I think human emotions are the same across. And it is despite of geographies or whatever. That's why the stories work, stories work, the similar stories work anywhere. I mean, there are things that you will watch, you don't even understand the language. You don't understand the language and you listen to that story. The film that I played for you on this out here, The Gully Boy, some of you didn't understand Hindi, right? But when you was looking at that story, the something starts connecting. You know, the human emotions are the same. You understand all those elements.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think that was the last question we had. I think we have already shot off by 30 minutes, 50% of the time. That shows the engagement, definitely. So, on behalf of APMP Global and APMP India, I would like to thank you for your time and for this mesmerizing, immersive engagement experience we had. So, thank you very much, and we hope to see you again sometime. So,
Thank you.
thank you.